All right, Shalom, Shalom. I'm Y'all coming at you with another lesson straight out of the Lion's Den camp of Yashala. Before I get started with this lesson, I would like to give all praises to the Heavenly Father in the name of His only begotten Son in their proper true names. And we're going to start off by saying Ka, Halayim, La, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ha, Rakak, Radash, Ma'amath. Definitely want to give double honors to the apostles of GMS and the elders. Definitely want to give double honors to my elder, Ahar Wam, Banyasa, all of the Lion's Den camp, located right here in Jacksonville, Florida. Shalom to the sincere men, women, and children that believe in sincerity and in truth. All right, shalom. Shalom to the Lion's Den camp and to the rest of the elect that's out there. All right, this lesson is going to be based off of why you should follow the law, statutes, commandments to the best of your ability, man. All right, meditating on the laws daily. All right, for one of the laws, matter of fact, let's go right to it. One of the laws is from Leviticus 11:7. All right, and it reads, "And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud." All right, the cod. "He is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you." All right. This article here is from New York Post. It says wild pigs in California develop bright blue skin after exposure to pesticides with rat poison. All right, officials. It says swarms of wild pigs in California develop blue flesh after ingesting pesticides containing rat poison, and officials warned other common game animals may also be infected. All right, so this is another reason why you try to follow the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability, because this is a prime example to, once all hell breaks loose, it's a prime example to keep the laws in your inward parts, man. While you out trying to survive when the system crashes, and you might have to go, basically hunt for your own food. Continue to have that mindset that pig, swine is not. It's not clean. It's unclean to us, man. And the main reason is because they'll eat anything. They'll eat a human if they, even the mafia used to do that. They used to feed their pigs anybody they unalived. All they had to do was go back in there and clean up the teeth, right? Pick up the teeth, because that's the only thing they don't consume, right? But they eat everything, man. So when I saw this article, the first thing popped in my mind was, damn, let me do a lesson on this to warn the people, man, to stay diligent, man. Keep the laws in your inward parts, man. Meditate on them daily, because when all hell breaks loose, and you might see a herd of swine out there, man, or a pig, and you starving, and instead of trusting in on Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, you put your, you start to trust on yourself, basically. And you might want to hunt down one of them pigs, man. All hell is finna break loose really soon, man. A lot of people depend on the government instead of depending on Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. He'll feed his prophets, man. He'll feed his elect. They won't be hungry or thirsty, man, in that time. But for the ones without the covering, they'll probably eat anything they can find, just trying to survive, not understanding that the Lord is going to take care of you if if you're doing right and if you're one of the chosen. All right, so it just blew my mind, because I'm like, damn, these pigs eating pesticide, right? Rat poison. That's what they're eating, rat poison, right? And the only thing it's doing to them is turning their skin blue, right? But to us, if you was to eat that pig, you'll die from that. You'll get very sick and probably croak over. It says the feral hog in Monterey County were exposed to a type of pesticide bait containing the anti-coagulant rodenticide. It says a type of rat poison that prevents blood clotting that forces internal bleeding. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife said the swine could have accidentally consumed the pesticide via dive bait or even other prey that might have already been infected with it. All right, here's a picture of it, matter of fact. That's crazy right there, bro. It says the Californian, it said the California wild pigs, a hybrid between domestic swine and feral boars, are omnivores that feed on anything, right? Feed on anything. So that's why I read that first precept, man. You know, they don't just eat the cod, man. They eat everything, you know. And if you're not in the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, and that's not where your foundation is, you know, you're during hard times, man, you know, you'll fall victim to stuff like that. And that's basically just the Lord setting you up, you know. Put a stumbling block in front of you. You know, what you gonna do? You gonna eat this swine? I know you've been starving for 3 days, you and your children. You know, there go a herd of swine. What are you gonna do? You know, are you gonna stick to my law, statutes, commandments, or are you gonna fall short? You know. But again, the whole point of this video, man, is to show that this animal will indefinitely eat anything they come across, man. All right, this is why they are unclean to us. All right. Right, it says the California wild pigs, a hybrid between domestic swine. I read that part. All right, it says you're right. They'll feed on anything from grass to other bites of animal matter, including mice, according to the CDFW. Any animal from the pigs to geese and even bears could be infected, according to the CDFW. Right? So again, these pigs will eat anything, man. They some disgusting animals, man. It said even including mice. So what precept should come to your mind, man? You know, just reading that. Let's go to Isaiah 66:17. It reads, "They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree, in the midst eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith Yahweh." Right. So as I was reading this precept popped in my mind, man. You know, the Lord ain't playing. You know, in that day when he brings the weapons of his indignation to destroy this place called America, right? The whore that sits upon the scarlet-colored beast in Revelation, and when he comes to destroy the land of Israel, the state, right, and to gather his elect, he said, anyone caught eating the swine in the field, you know, again, reading this article, I'm like, damn, you know, this is talking about wild boars, you know, in that time, you know, when all hell do break loose, you know, that's what people are going to be doing. They're going to be hunting for their food, fishing, hunting birds, whatever, deer, whatever they can find, right? And if you don't have the mindset of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, you know, you'll fall victim due to the starvation. You know, your flesh will take over, man, and make you eat stuff like mice, anything you can catch. You know, things like swine, pig. You know, but the Lord said what? He said, shall be consumed. He said, they shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. For I know their works and their thoughts. I shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. And he's already doing that now down in the Middle East, gathering the nation down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? You know, to bring forth Armageddon, right? Armageddon in the Hebrew, right? To judge the nations. Verse 19, I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations, to Tarshish. But that pretty much the point. I was going to go further, but that's pretty much the point, man. You know, the Lord ain't playing. You know, if you want to depend on your flesh and depend on, you know, thinking, you know, you can feed yourself during those times, you know, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because the Lord going to lead you to a bunch of herd of swine just to see what you're gonna do. And if you fail that test, you will be consumed. But again, just reading the article, a thought came to my mind to do a lesson on, to stay away from the swine. Go to the Apocrypha, read about the 7 sons, man. That basically were tortured and unalive because they didn't want to eat the swine. You should have that same mindset at the end of the day. All right, let's go to let's go to Proverbs 2:1. Proverbs 7:1. So like, my son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. See? And with thee, you should be thinking on them daily, man. Period. A righteous man knows the commandments. The laws are set there for people who are disobedient. So they can run back to the law and say, damn, while we're in this grace period, dang, I messed up. That's a law that I just broke, at the end of the day. But a righteous man, meditates on them daily. They are, it's food for him, man. It says, verse 2, keep my commandments and live. See, when you keep the commandments, man, you live. It's a way for the Lord to preserve you, man. Because he sees you're a righteous man. You follow in the footsteps of our King Yahushua. Stand on that straight and narrow, right? It's a testimony as well. We know the law. We can't keep the laws today perfectly, but we try to follow the laws to the best of our ability. Practicing the righteous acts. But stuff like not eating swine, you can pretty much do that, man. Through the research of what not to eat. They put lard in almost everything, but you can Google and you can research stuff that has lard or swine in it and stay away from it. All right, it says, verse 2, keep my commandments and live, and my law as thine apple in thy eye, as the apple of thine eye. All right, so we, basically having it on your mind at all times, on, knowing what to stay away from, knowing how to walk, through this truth, It says, bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kingswoman. So but again, man, like it says in verse 3, bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Right? All right, it says, back to the article, it says, any animal from the pig, it says the department noted that it first received reports of the pig's bizarre intestinal discoloration in March, but noted that not all contaminated pigs have the glaring blue innards, especially depending on when they consume the pesticide, right? Because you have to remember, man, pigs don't sweat, right? So everything they eat it stays into their skin, man. It stays into their muscles. All that bacteria, all the worms that they have, they're full of worms, man. So everything they eat, it goes right into their bloodstream, right into their muscles, right into their skin, And our people be quick to run down to go buy them some pork chops, man. Not understanding that everything we was forced to eat in slavery was everything that we was totally against, coming over here on them ships, man. And they forced us to eat the swine. And now, you go hang out with the family. That's pretty much all the family cooks, man. They make sure the meat is cheap to buy at the stores, right? That's all pretty much they gave us during slavery. So, our ancestors had to make the best out of it. It's everything. When you think about soul food, man, it's like damn, this shit's so nasty, man. Chitlins, pork chops, pig feet, barbecue pig feet, all kind of shit, man. We used to go in the corner store, pickle pig feet, pickle sausage. It's all set there for a stumbling block, man. All right. It says, quote, "It's wild. I'm not talking about a little blue. I'm talking about neon blue, blueberry blue," end quote. Dan Burton, owner of Urban Trapping Wildlife Control, who first reported the oddly colored flesh, told the Los Angeles Times. All right, that's the that's the pesticide right there. It says the wild pigs are present in 56 of California's 58 countries. Damn, according to the CDFW. Right, just like how they do in Georgia, they do the same thing in California, right? They got big hunters out there, man. Games out there hunting deer, hunting boar, even to the point that they even hunting mountain lions and cougars, it's so it's just crazy, man. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, but closer toward Dinsmore area, where a lot of Idumeans are, and that's all they do out there is hunt, man. And they tried to get me to go pig hunt with them a few times. I'm not. I'm gonna sit right here at the basketball court and keep hooping. Y'all boys can go ride out or do whatever. I wasn't rocking with them anyways. I got in a lot of fights with them over some racist comments, but that was the only park that was in my area. So I'm not gonna let nobody run me from no park. But anyways, so I had to deal with them a lot, a bunch of years, man. But and just paying attention to their ways and seeing them, going out bringing back deer and pig and stuff like that, and I don't want no parts of that, man. Now venison, I'll rock with some venison now, but I'm not touching no dead carcass of the swine. That's go against the laws, man. All right, and that was before I even knew all of that. The Lord kept me from that. The water y'all bashim y'all shot. All right, it says a 2018 study by the University of Nebraska found that the rat poison residue was present in over 8% of the wild pig tissue. Damn, samples collected from populations near agricultural and residential areas that use pesticide or rodenticides. It says in the same study, a staggering 83% of bear tissue collected was also contaminated by the poison, which is also another unclean meat, right? Unclean animal, something that we're not supposed to eat. But the scriptures don't say that you can't. You're not supposed to touch that animal. That's why you will see Native Americans who are also part of the 10 tribes. They wore bear fur, made, I forgot what they call them, but they made coats out of bear fur and stuff like that, shoes, stuff like that. But then you even think about it. The scriptures say don't touch the dead carcass of the pig. What's the football made out of? You think about stuff like that, it's like, damn, who's the dominant people that play for? I mean, today it's not made out of the pigskin today, but when it originated, that's why they call it pigskin. The football itself. But anyway, that's just the Coliseum all over again, man. Everything that's built into this country, man. Everything that they're involved into, man, it's all wickedness, man. Everything about it goes back to Rome, man. All right, it says pesticides. Right. All right. It says in the same study, a staggering 83% of bear tissue collected was also contaminated by the poison. Pesticides used outdoors often create runoff after excessive rainfall or poor application and trickled into nearby bodies of water. It primarily infects aquatic life first, but the dominion effect only continues as predators that consume the fish spread the chemicals through the food chain. Shalakia. All right. But yeah, again, this lesson was just based off of following the laws, statutes, commandments to your best of your ability, keeping the Lord in your inward parts, man. Meditating on the laws. All right. This is 1 Timothy 1:8. But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. The law is set for a reason, man. It's good, right? But we know it's not. We can't uphold the law. We can't keep the law perfect, right? But for those who a righteous man, they meditate on the laws daily, right? Verse 9, it says, knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, right? Because the laws are already, on his mind constantly, right? So now he knows to keep on that straight and narrow, right? Not veering to the left or to the right, following the laws to the best of his ability. But it says, for the lawless and disobedient, right? So this is who the law is made for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for the sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, right? For whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for perjured person, right? And if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, right? So again, all the commandments is for the disobedient, right? The unfaithful, the ones who put their faith in themselves. That's why the law is there, right? Especially during this grace period, man. Understanding that, hey, even Timothy goes into that when you read a little further. He once was a blasphemer, right? You can read that in the next couple verses, right? Verse 13. Right, I'm gonna read it in a second, but yeah, even with him, he understood, man. He was a blasphemer, he was disobedient, right? But the Lord showed him mercy and brought him out of that Gentile state of mind. So now the laws are on his mind daily, right? Now that he's become a righteous man, putting away the old, man and becoming that new man in the spirit, right? Knowing that the laws are on his mind daily, right? Knowing that the laws are not set right for the righteous, because he know the laws. The laws are there to remind the wicked, the ungodly, right? 2/3 of our people that choose to follow in behind the heathens, man. But we can read it, right? It's verse 11. It says, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed power, which was committed to my trust. And I thank Yahweh Shah Mashiach, our Lord, who hath enabled me, for that he counted me faithful, right? Putting me into the ministry, who was before a blasphemer, see, talking about himself, and a persecutor, and injurious. But I obtained mercy, because I did it ignorantly in unbelief. Right, so the Lord brought him out of that Gentile state of mind, right? Gave him mercy, blessed him with mercy, right? And showed him the right way. Verse 14, and I end, and the grace of our Lord was exceedingly abundant with faith and love, which is in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. This is a faithful saying and worthy of all acceptance, right? Acceptation, that Hamashiach Yahweh Shai came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am chief. All right, so at the end of the day, now that we know the truth, meditate on the scriptures daily, man. Let's see. Meditate on the laws daily. Let me see if I can find that. Slack you. I'm not gonna worry about it. All right, I'll go ahead and end it there. But yeah, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, man. Remember to keep the laws, to the best of your ability. Depend on the Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai to lead you to those living waters, man, and to keep you from wickedness, right? And to keep, to continue to have mercy on you and bless you in the spirit of truth, man. Matter of fact, let me see if I can grab that real quick. I know I'm spelling that wrong. See if I can find that. Oh, Psalms 1, that's a good one. Yeah. It's not the one I was looking for, but yeah, Psalms 1 is a really good one. I know that one. It's another one in Psalms, but I'm not going to worry about it. This is Psalms 1:1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, Yahweh, and in his law doth he meditate day and night, man. See, that's the mindset you should be in, not trying to be in the seat of the ungodly, not trying to hang with the ungodly, be like the ungodly, right? But to be separate from them, to be holy, right? Which means separate, right? To have the laws on your mind at all time. Verse 3, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season, right? His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away, right? Which goes back to when we was reading Isaiah 66, right? For the ones that want to, are in the garden, hiding, eating on swine, eating abominable foods, they're going to be as chaff in that day, man, right? Which the wind driveth away, which should bring another precept to your mind, the destroying winds, right? That the Lord says he's going to bring forth those ICBMs, nuclear destruction, man. And that's what's going to separate the wheat from the chaff, man. Those destroying winds. Just like when they used a winnowing tool back then to throw the wheat into the air, right, to separate the wheat from the chaff, man. Right, while the wheat go up, right, up into the chariots, right, the chaff is going to be burnt up and caught up into the winds of destruction. All right, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, man. Lord, to who it needs to be edifying to, Ahapatha and DTA.